take drinking and driving seriously. But when I was out with my buddies and it was just me, I thought, it's just me. It's just me. I got this under control. And you know what? If something ends up happening, like I get pulled over, of course, because that's, of course, the worst that can happen to us, right? I mean, DUI, the worst case scenario is just DUI, right? Obviously, it's not. People dying is the worst case scenario, and we all know that, but for some reason, we can't wrap our mind around that. We can't think, what would it actually mean if I killed somebody? And see, that's never entered my mind. I heard people talk about it. I knew people that died drinking and driving. But for some reason, it could not be me. You know, I wear Superman t-shirts when we go to the schools. And it's symbolism saying, this is what I used to think I was. This is what a lot of people think they are. They think they're invincible. They think that for some reason it won't be them. Or that if it is them, they're going to be able to make it through it. You know, a DUI accident where the DUI driver gets killed is not the worst case scenario. A DUI accident where the DUI driver lives and has killed somebody else and has to live with that for the rest of their life, that's the worst case scenario. You know, if you've ever been behind the wheel and you made it home, it's because you're lucky. It's not because you're good at it. It's not because you're blessed either, because God has nothing to do with you drinking and driving and getting you home. It's because you're lucky. And you see, for me, my luck ran out that night. But nothing about hurting somebody ever came into my brain.
And May 11th, 2002 rolled around, and that was the day before Mother's Day. And my sister-in-law Barbara came to the door, and when I went to the door, I was kind of confused at why she was there, thinking maybe something was wrong with my brother, Buddy. And this is the message that she delivered to me. There's been an accident. It was Megan. She didn't make it.
It took 4 seconds for that accident to happen. I was on top of the world until I wasn't. Everything was great until it wasn't. 4 seconds later, nothing was okay. My whole life was spinning out of control. Megan and Lisa's lives were ended.
I can't even describe that moment. I can't even articulate how I felt, how my heart just exploded. It was like somebody had ripped inside my chest and pulled it out and just obliterated it. And then the trial came. It was about 14 months down the road, and it was a long week. It was an emotional week over in Milton at the courthouse there.
I'm still that little child making childish decisions, saying this has to be somebody else's fault but mine. And so I said I'm not guilty. And one of the main reasons why I said I was not guilty was because I had gone to lawyers and they looked me right in my face and said, you're probably going to go to prison for 30 years.
After a week of trial, he was found guilty of 2 counts of DUI manslaughter, and then in October he was sentenced to 22 years in prison. And the judge told us that day when he sentenced Eric that he could run the sentences one of 2 ways. Consecutive sentences or back to back. So he got 11 years for Megan and 11 years for Lisa. And then he also got 4 years probation for each girl. And the judge said I could run those sentences consecutively, back to back, for 22 years and 8 years probation, or concurrently 11 years. He could serve them both at the same time and get out after 11 years, and then his probation would be concurrent as well for 4 years. And he chose consecutive sentences.
I was 24 years old. I was a devastated wreck. I was a hollow person. I had no idea what life had meant. The only thing that kept ringing in my head is my parents saying, don't drink and drive, don't drink and drive, don't drink and drive. And now they're sitting next to me, broken, crushed, because they felt responsible too. Like, where did we go wrong? It's like, you didn't. I went wrong. You know, I'm the one that made that choice. You taught me right. I just didn't listen. I was that childish person.
Because I needed those words, I'm sorry, just rung out. I needed to hear that. I desperately needed to hear, I'm sorry. And then I got to hear him say it from his mouth, and that was huge. And, you know, watching him as he was ushered out of that courtroom that day, that was heartbreaking because I'm a very compassionate person.
I got a piece of paper right here, as a matter of fact. It's crazy that I still have it, but this little piece of paper was what they gave me. It's a post-it note. This was what I got for myself. It says, your tentative release date is July 18th, 2025. They said, oh, by the way, though, if you're good, you can get out November 24th, 2023. If you want to make any phone calls, here's your number on the bottom. They gave you credit for 71 days in jail to get out of my office. And they handed me my life on a piece of paper. And I walked out. And you have to look at the floor because you're not allowed to look anybody in the eyes when you're at Lake Butler, Florida. So I went from being this kid who had everything on a plate for him, on a platter, silver spoon in the mouth, to being in these ragged clothing, handing a post-it note, told him, get out, don't look at anybody in the face.
And so as time went on, my mom got on Eric's calling list, and he called her regularly. And I would hear about those conversations. He wrote letters to us, he sent cards. And so I was getting to know him. I'm not that good at writing letters, but I tried to write back to him. And I did. I accomplished that a few times. But I was getting to know him. And then I was at her house. It's in 2005 at some point, and he called, and I was there. My mom put me on the phone, and first thing he said is, Ms. Napier, I just want to let you know I take full responsibility for what I did that night. And that was so huge for me. I'd been praying that I would hear him take responsibility. And he was away from attorneys, and he was in prison, and he was thinking about that every day. And when my daughter Michelle got her letter where he said that he took responsibility, she called me. And she said, Mom, is it a burden on you? He's going to be in prison for 22 years. And I was relieved to get that phone call because it was such a burden on me. I thought about that sentence of his every single day. And it was so heavily weighing on my mind, and especially after he took responsibility. And so I remembered what the judge had said in that courtroom about consecutive or concurrent sentencing. So I had this idea, didn't know how to make it work, but we made it work, and we got a hearing in August of 2006. And we went back before the judge, and we asked him if he would restructure Eric's sentences to concurrent so he could get out after 11 years. And he said, okay, he did it. And then when I started doing presentations in March of 2004, and I was just going to schools my sister got me to come to Daytona, and I started sharing this testimony, and I always talked about forgiveness in it, but I was asking people not to drink and drive. I was just saying, just even if you've had one drink, just don't get in the car and drive, because you're putting yourself at risk and other people.
Now we're talking a whole different story. The story of redemption, the story of forgiveness, the story of mercy, the story of what God can do if you are obedient and give it to